So I can see a couple of people been here for this webinar testing session, and I welcome you all for this short introduction session on this software testing. Okay, first of all, before we go ahead, I would like to before we go ahead, I just like to share an introduction about myself. Hi, this is Emmanuel Devanesan, and I am going to be your instructor as you just go up with your testing course. So as a brief introduction, I have been into this IT field since from 1997. I started my career as a faculty and was working as a faculty for 3 years, and then in 2000 I switched over my career as a developer. Does a person is automation is good for Selenium or QTP? See, it depends. Selenium is a open source tool, and QTP is a licensed version. It depends on the company's requirement as to what they want to go and what they want to do on the automation front. Okay, so before you go ahead with the automation testing, without your manual testing and having any understanding on manual testing, you may not be able to get into an automation. That is one point. Second point is you need to have some coding knowledge. Okay, so that we will be so company will decide as to depends on the budget whether to go for a Selenium or a QTP. Okay, now Harshal continues with this question. I am confused if I need to really learn automation. That depends. See, automation testing is also an added skill for you as you go ahead with your career. So I think I have answered your question, Harshal. Okay, now okay, what is the difference between QA, QC? Which is more better, QA or QC? Is a question from Anamika. Anamika, I'll be addressing that QA and QC part in our introduction demo. So just hang on there. Okay. And there is one more question from Venkatesh, who's asking difference between BVA and ECP. It's boundary value analysis and equivalence partitioning. See, I have to explain you, it's a vast subject, but it is that is called as a dynamic testing techniques that comes under the functionality testing. Okay, so in BVA, what we do is we will be testing the boundaries. Let's say we have to test the range of 1 to 10. Okay, so we will test 1, 10, and then the number which is less than 1 and the number which is the greater than 10. Okay, in ECP what we do is we will test any 1 to 10, any range between 1 to 10, and the minimum and the maximum value of values will be tested. That is called equivalence partitioning. So further, if you want to learn on this, yes, please join this course and you will learn more things with an example. Okay, I hope I have answered your question, Venkatesh. Okay, there is a question from Rohit. Is mandatory to be an ISTQB certified for an annual tester? See, any course that you do, having a certification is an added advantage for your career to grow. Okay, so it depends on you. If it is good to have a scenario having an ISTQB certification. So at this session, you'll try to understand what is software testing fundamentals, and I'll just give you a walkthrough on the software development lifecycle and the types of model, and then overview on test planning and test design, and then a few example on as to how we can go about testing with a live scenario. Is that all right? Can I go ahead, guys? Let's make it more interactive. So there was one question where I saw how to raise question. See, if you do not know how to raise a question, just see on your right hand side of the screen where you can have something like questions. So click on that window and then you can just type your questions over there, which will be displayed to me. Is that right? Here we go. Okay, so before I go ahead with the software testing, just wanted to give you a highlight overview when testing actually started. See, if I should tell you, the primary method of testing in early 50s was just debugging. They were just doing some debugging on the codes. But in the time of during 70s, in 1970s, actual scenario like testing started came into picture. Why it came into picture is because every product that came into the market, since it was not properly validated, there was certain cases where companies had to shut down themselves operating, and they had to face a severe loss. Okay, so the reason was because products were not properly tested. See, even if you say, if you just talk about the recent things that were happening, the current scenario, you must be knowing this Nestle Maggie got been you can we have seen this Maggie was burnt out and burned in India across all the states, right? The reason because there was a lead content more than the prescribed limit. Okay, it got. So what is the reason? Either one thing is company had not done a proper testing to find out what was the quantity of the lead that is found in the Maggie, right? So if they had found it, they wouldn't have got into this kind of a scenario. You understood? So basically, testing plays a vital role in the current market, in the scenario. So now, okay, so why do we need to do some testing? Testing is like, as a tester, you are owing your company or your end user a best quality. Okay, so what do you mean? Which means you as a tester are promising your client or your end user that, and you are a certified, giving a certification that this product can be used and there would not be any defect. That is the reason when you see any product that we buy in the market, you can see those stickers, QC passed and QA passed and something and so on. Okay, so what is the reason is because there is something, a process where they have validated the product and now they are releasing it to the market. You understood? So now, what are all things? Why do we need to do testing? Sometimes what happens is few products, few things will work with one user and it may not work with hundreds of users. So that is a live scenario. Many a times it happens, right? So if you buy a China model, it is your luck if it works for you and it may not work for some other. The reason is what? Proper testing is not conducted. That's the reason China mobiles are very cheaper, the live scenario, but when it comes into the real-time world, it will work for one user and it may not work for several. So you are lucky if your China product works for you. Okay, so that's the reason we need to do a proper testing. Okay, now we need to ensure that what is created does what it's supposed to do. What do you mean by that? See, you are a tester and your client comes and gives you a requirement and asking you to do some product testing. Okay, so your requirement comes in the form of a document from your client. So that will tell you my product should work like this, my output should be like this. So you need to give me do a better testing and ensure there is my product is defect free. Okay, so now what you will do, you will take the requirement document from your client and then with the product you'll be trying to validating everything. So whether the requirement is working or not, whether this is working or not. For example, let me just take a calculator. Let me take a calculator for an example. Okay, so now your requirement, your document from the client would say, if I add 2 digits, that should give me a value, right? Appropriate value. So now when I say, your requirement would say 14 plus 36 should give me 50, right? So that is a requirement what the customer is asking you to test. Assume if you give the same 14 plus 36 gives you 60, which means it is adding but the output is something different, which means it is not working as expected. Or in best example I will give you, let me say 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay, assume if 5 plus 4 gives you 20, what happens? which means there is some defect, there is a problem there, which is not working as expected. You understood? So why do we need to test it? Because you need to ensure the product, for the reason what it is created, is supposed to do for what has been done, created. You understood, guys? And one more thing, why we need to do testing: there are chances that a user will do things which we may not have considered at all, right? There are some ridiculous uses that they would be. Let me give you one example. When I started my career as a faculty in 97, we had an application called Doomore. So those times it was Windows 3.1, and most of the tutorials were in DOS operated. Okay, so we had one gentleman who was around at that time in 97. He was around, he must be, he was he should be around 52, 53. Okay, in that age he was doing his MCA in one particular university. So he wanted to learn computers, and he just joined our institute. So what we did, since he was new, and we just operated the do more session. The session was called as do more. So as we just open up the screen, it will ask you what is your name. Okay, so where you need to type from the keyboard your name. So our gentleman, what he did, when the system asked him what is your name, he started shouting, my name is Srinivasan, my name is Srinivasan. Okay, so see, those time we did not have that voice recognition software during those times. So why testing is required, that's what we saw. There are chances that a user will do things which may not have considered. Okay, then we had to go near him and told him, sir, it is not a voice recognition, you need to type manually. And then he started doing that. So that's how things, sometimes it gets ridiculous. You understood? And now one more thing, why testing is required is because, see, we have many operating systems, right? We have Internet Explorer, we have Google Chrome, we have Firefox, Safari, Mac, and any kind of URL that you would try to access from all these different operating systems, sometimes their behavior would go cranky. The application that opens in Google Chrome may not open in Firefox. Application that opens in Safari may not open in Internet Explorer. Okay, so for all these kinds of different scenarios in testing in different browsers, we need to do testing. Guys, I'm taking a pause. Okay, Venkatesh is asking difference between verification and validation. I'm coming there, Venkatesh. Still I haven't started it. Okay, now I think since people have understood, I'm just go for proceeding further. Software testing is the process of validating and verifying that a software application or product works as expected. Now comes the very interesting topic. It says it's the process of validating and verifying that a software application works as expected or not. So what do you mean by validation and what do you mean by verification? Okay, so now when we talk about verification, verification is nothing but, see, before any product comes into your hands, always remember how is the software developed. Before I get into testing, let me tell you the phases how the software is developed. First of all, it starts, just take a look at my screen. It starts with a requirement gathering. Okay, it starts as a requirement gathering. That's the first phase. Second, it comes to design. Okay, I'm just making it very short. Then comes the testing. Then comes the implementation. Before that, requirement gathering, then we have something called analysis. Then comes the design. Then comes the testing. Then comes the production or implementation. Then comes maintenance. Okay. So now tell me what happens is requirement gathering, all that is expected from the customer. I want a calculator. Let's take me the example like this calculator. So the customer, he will come up with a document that would tell you how a calculator should look like. So sometimes they will have some kind of picture like this. They would say, I want this 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this, and I want this memory buttons over there, and I want this logical operators plus minus into square root percentage, all these things I want. And they'll come up with a format, and they will also tell you how should be the operation of the calculator. If I press plus, what should happen? If I press minus, what should happen? So all these requirements will be coming in the form of a requirement gathering document, or we call it as a business review specification, or you can call it as SRS system. Okay, let's stick on to BRS, business review specification, which is called as business review spec. Okay, so this document will tell you what a calculator should do. So who will be giving this requirement gathering? This would be from the user or your client, or he'll be called as a stakeholder. So assume that I am a stakeholder or I am a client. I want to build a calculator. Okay, so what I will do, I would draft a document that would describe everything, like as to how a calculator should appear, how it should function, how it should operate, what should be the result if I press some buttons. All those things, they will be in the form of this requirement gathering. Always understand, the product is not yet come in our hand, but you have an idea as to what the product will look alike. Okay, so it is in the form of what? Document. Now then comes a second phase called analysis. What is this analysis all about? Here in this analysis, the testing team as well as the development team, they will do their own analysis as to how I should make this layout, what is the application that I can go about, what is the software that I can use it about, and all those kinds of, and how should my layout look alike. So everything they'll try to make an analysis. Okay, now what also happens in analysis, nothing but they will also try to find out if there would be any kind of defect that would arise as they go through the document. Like how? So now assume that this requirement document is saying, okay, they would say that requirement gathering, it says that a plus b should be somewhat some value. Okay, or better example I'll give you. If there are people who are coming from the computer background, they should know what is integer. Okay, so integer is a variable which can accept value from minus 32,000, I think it is 567, to 32,566. Okay, I'm not very sure on that, but this is the range, integer value. Okay, now there could be some document that would say, okay, so check out for the value which ranges from this integer to integer. Now, so let's assume my calculator, I give a requirement document that says, I give an example scenario like 54,035 plus add some 98 some. Okay, so now the customer is expecting to give me the output of this. Let's say the output is, what is that, 8 11 1 and 8 4 12 13, then 9 5 14 15. Okay, this is the value that he is expecting. Now in the requirement gathering, if he gives like this, now you tell me, I can easily find out there is a defect in this. The reason is because I have already declared that this should accept value only from minus 32. Okay, Abhinay has said, thanks Abhinay, he's saying the integer range is 32,768 to 767. Thanks Abhinay. Okay, so now in my requirement gathering, I have said that it should accept value only within this range, but unfortunately assume that I have given this range, which means there is a defect in the document. You understood? So we will be trying to validate the document if there are any defects or any errors are there in the requirement gathering document. So such kind of analysis we'll be doing. So which means, in other words, if I should say, this is called as a process of reviewing or inspecting the document. Okay, reviewing the document. Okay, this is called as verification. You understood, guys? So what we do in verification is, you are simply reviewing the document with an intention of finding a fault or a defect, whether it is anything is persisting in the document or not. See, for example, I have declared integer where it should accept only the range, but unfortunately I have given a value like this where it should calculate. So if I enter such a value, the calculator may go wrong. See, for example, what I'll do, let me just type some example. I have given some range. Now I give some range to do some testing. Now look at the value, it comes as 1.24 blah 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 plus 16, which means it has got its own value where it own range where it can accept some up to some certain limit. Okay, if I go beyond the limit, then system will obviously throw some error. It's the same thing that I am trying to find out based on the requirement gathering document. Guys, you understand this? So any review that you do on the document is called as verification. You understood? So the product has not come in my hand, but I'm just doing a testing on the documents which has been provided. You understood? So that stage is called verification. Guys, any doubts here before I go? Okay, Harshal says awesome example. Thanks, Harshal. Okay, now let me come to validation. What is this validation? Okay, so what is this validation? Now I told you, in review we just do a testing with the document. Now validation, where I do, now my product has come in my hand. Okay, product is nothing but the product which has been developed by the developer. A code has been written, there is a layout that is formed. Okay, there is a structure for this, and that has got some operational values. It is going to display as I move around with these functionalities. Okay, so now it's your baby. A baby has come in your hand and you are now going to do a testing. You understood? So when do we start this validation? Our validation starts once the product comes to our testing team. That is called as the validation. Venkatesh, did I answer your question? You have been asking me difference between verification and validation. So in short, let me just go to the next slide. Okay, so in verification typically involves reviews and meetings to evaluate documents, plans, code requirements, and specification. So any document that you prepare, see, if I should go about on this verification, based on the requirement gathering, development team will prepare their own own designing plan. Testing team will also prepare their test plan. Test plan I will touch base at the end of the session. Okay, as to what I should test, how I should test, what are the things that are in scope, and how many testers are going to test, all those things. So once assume that I am a QA lead or a QA manager, once he prepares the test plan or any document, immediately he'll call for a meeting and he will conduct a walkthrough session to make everyone are on the same page or not. So what happens during this verification process is, as they walk through or do a review, any kinds of deviation which is found in the requirement gathering, then and there it would be addressed. You understood? Why is this verification required? Guys, any answer do you have? Why is this verification process required at the requirement document? Okay, so someone says to build the right product to minimize the effort that we may have to do in the later stages. That's an Arshal is saying, to minimize the effort that we may have to do in the later stage. That's an awesome response, Arshal. And Abhinay say whether they meet the specified requirements. Yeah, more or less it is same. But one thing is, the early, if I should put it up in another technical way, the early the defect is found, the cost is less. Correct. So since I have found the defect in the requirement stage itself, assume if I have not found it during the verification process and assume that the product is built, designing is done, testing is also done. If I find the defect during the testing phase, don't you think the cost would be more? Why? Because again they have to rephrase the requirement gathering, again the development team have to rebuild the structure. You understood? So that's the way that that's the reason that we get into this verification process. Now Arshil is saying also we can be sure that we are building a correct product. That's right. Now, in validation, typically, what is that validation? It involves actual testing and takes place after verifications are completed. So, once when the requirement is done and walkthrough is done and everyone have agreed upon, yes, this is the right document, this is the right requirement, yes, we can go proceed, we can start building up a product. Once when the product is done, so assume, so let me give an example. Venkatesh wants some bit more about validation. Venkatesh, let me tell you, let's talk about your mobile phone that you are using it. Okay, so mobile phone, how it comes, before the mobile phone comes as a commodity in your hand, prior to that, first of all, the user will prepare a document how a mobile phone should look like. Correct? That is a verification. They prepare a document and then they'll do a review, walkthrough, and everyone, once when they are aligned to that particular document, then they start manufacturing the mobile phones. And the developer, he will write the code for the mobile, how to function, how to operate, and so on. Clear? So now once the product is developed, now what happens, you must have seen this Microsoft people, they have releasing Windows phones, you remember? So they release it as a beta version. Any software you take, it releases as a beta version. What is that beta version? It is not a real version actually. So they are just releasing it for the customer to do some testing. Why is that required? Before they come up with the real version of the product, they want to address if there are any kinds of errors or defects that are creeping out. So in the beta version, they'll try to set right or remove those defects or refix those defects. You understood? That is what the validation that we are doing. So once when the mobile phone comes in as a from the development team into the testing team, then you start your testing, and actual testing starts with your product. Did I answer your question? So Venkatesh, so what happens is you are taking the product into your hand and you start doing your testing. You understood? So this when happens, it happens after the verifications. Are you clear, Venkatesh? Okay. So now your product is there and you have started done that testing. Why am I doing this? Because before I send it to the production, I want to ensure my software is bug free. Software does not have any defects. So then I can move out or roll out for production. You're clear? So validation is nothing but you are testing the real product that comes into your hands. Now, why is this validation required? Okay, so validation is required, test is required because you want to ensure that the product is bug free. You understood? Now if I should release a product, if I should do a validation, what kind of attitude a tester should possess? Let me ask a question. If I am doing a validation of on this mobile phone, now guys tell me what kind of attitude you should possess to do this validation or a testing. Okay, let me just. Okay, Girish Prabhu is saying to expect as many bugs as possible. Harshal is saying, secondly, we need to ensure that it does not break in general scenarios. Correct. You're close to my response. And Venkatesh is saying to get the better quality. More or less, it is same. But now, Arvind is saying, as it met the prescribed specification. Yes. Okay, now let me tell you a kind of attitude. This is an interview question that would be asked to you. What kind of attitude that a tester should possess? I'll tell you. It was the same question that was asked to me. That was a time that I switched over from developer to testing world. Okay, and then one of our MNC that they started launched in India. So they asked me the same question. You know, my answer was like I said, my wife is a developer, and I should have an attitude to break whatever she develops. So that is the That is the attitude. So your attitude is what you have to break whatever the developer is doing. Only then you can give a product free product. Okay, so which means your attitude is to break with an intention of ensuring that the product is breaking or not. Okay, so you have to ensure the where the loophole is and where the product is getting broken. You understood? So what is your attitude? Your attitude as a tester must be to find faults and ensure that it is breaking. Only if within such an attitude, then you can release a product free. You understood, guys? So validation, what we do, we are with an intention finding out, is there any bug, if there is any break point, is there anywhere that I can find out some bug or defect, and so on. Are you clear with this verification and validation? Okay, so let me just proceed. Everyone said yes, and let me go ahead. So this we saw already. Why software testing? Let me just move ahead. Software developed by human beings is likely to have false bugs. Yeah, we are all human beings, literally, right? We are tend to do some mistakes. So Indian, one of the slogans that we see in India is like, rules are meant to break, right? So that is by with unwillingness we try to go and do all those things, but we as a human being, we make mistakes. So and we as a tester are here to identify those faults and those bugs. Understood? So that is one reason. Secondly, failures can be very expensive. Any failure that happens during the course after the testing is very expensive. Since I told you, the bugs that you identify at the very early stage, the cost is very less. Okay, for that reason we need to go for a testing. Third reason, learn about the reliability of the software. Okay, so if I can ensure that I can rely, so you most of the guys, they rely on some of the brands. See, if I should tell you, when there were in the 90s and 2000s, when cell phones came into market, everyone, we relied on a cell phone, Nokia cell phones, right? And we people were not very much relying on the other Motorola or whatever that came during those times, because we all were relying on that particular cell phone. The reason was they gave a good commodity during those times, but later it got changed. That is something different, but I'm talking about the reliability of the product. So software testing, because the Nokia phones early days that came, they were so good, so we relied. And competitively, there was some China products also that came, but we were not relying on them. We were just relying on the branded. Okay, the reason is they are product free and they are easy to use. Correct. And why software testing? Avoid being sued by the customer. So nowadays in most of the on-site, you can see people, they just get into the court and sue the customers or the companies where the product is not good. When I was in US in I think in 2007, I believe 2007 or 2008, there was some Barbie dolls that came from China to US, and it was so massive, they imported in US. And finally the US government, they just did some analysis and found that the fur that they used in the Barbie doll was so harmful to the babies. And then all the Barbie dolls that was imported by China to into US from China, again they sent it back. The reason is because they are not they were not tested properly, and that particular company was sued. Okay, so for that reason, to avoid customers suing us, it is better to have proper testing. Lastly, to continue to stay in your business, if your business wants to prosper, you need to release a good product. Okay. Now, what is a bug? I'm just going ahead. A bug is nothing but any kind of deviation from the requirement, or any kind of fault or an error that a person makes in the software, and any kind of operation that leads to a failure is called a bug. Guys, you understood? So a deviation from the requirement, or any kind of a human error, or any kind of an operation that fails your operation is called as a bug. Clear? So why do these faults occur in software? One is because there is a wrong requirements might have gone wrong. Okay, so what are the wrong requirements? It could be erroneous, a fault, for inappropriate, and sometimes it could be incomplete, or the requirement are inconsistent. So all such scenarios are termed as wrong requirements. And design, fundamental design flaws in the software. So let's take for example this calculator. Assume if this calculator text box, it is diagonally kept like this, okay, at a 90-degree. How do you feel? Is that design is okay? Do you think we guys will go and purchase that? We will not, right? So design matters. If the design is flaws or not good, we may not get into this. Then implementation. What happens on implementation? See, if there is any mistakes in chip fabrication, you are fabricating a chip, and if they have done it very wrongly, okay, at the implementation time, so that means there is a bug in that. Let's take wiring, electricity wiring. Assume that the earth wire is connected into the positive value, a positive wire, and the negative into the earthing. What would happen? The entire wiring will get burnt, right? So at the time of implementation, there are chances of faults coming up in the software. Same way while writing the code as well. And lastly, support system. When the programming language is very poor, and if there are faulty compilers is nothing but the codes that they have developed. Okay, or the debuggers, whatever the debugging, each and every line of the code they will start to debug. Sorry guys. Okay, or the tools that they have used. Okay, those things can lead to fault in the software. What do software faults cost? So if there is a fault in the software, what is the cost of that? It can be a huge loss. It is a very large impact, and it would be inconvenient to the customer. Right? It is a huge loss for the client as well as for the company, parent company, and that can create a very large impact. The reputation of the company can be spoiled, reliability will not be there, and it causes an inconvenience. Again, if this company has not delivered a right product, then they will have to look for someone else. You got it? Okay. Now, so there are cost of software faults. I'll just touch base one or two. An F18 crashed because of a missing exception condition. See, missing exception condition is if a is equal to a is not equal to 5, then what should happen? Okay, if the a is not equal to 5, then what it should happen? Then it should exit from the loop. Correct. So if I do not write that if else condition, then what will happen? It will be inside the loop. You understood? It will not break out and come out for the next value. You understood? So that is called the exception condition. So if this is not working, what is the alternative that I should? So that alternative condition was not provided, and that led this F18 to crash. Okay, and one more thing, a software flaw caused UK bank to duplicate every transfer payment request for half an hour. The bank lost 2 billion British pounds. You see, it's a big blow for the British bank. Assume that Harshal is making a transaction of 10,000 rupees, and that 10,000 has made a double transfer. So 10,000 plus 10,000 is 20,000 bucks, and that would be a loss to the bank. You understood? So there was no if else condition. Okay, so understood. So this cost of softwares will impact, and it will create an inconvenience to all. That's one of the good example I can provide. Now let me continue. Software testing can be broadly be classified into two categories. Uh, One is manual testing, and the other one is the automation testing. In manual testing, it includes testing a software manually. Okay, automation testing, here we'll be writing the script, or we will do a record and playback with the automation testing tools that are available in the market like Selenium and Qtp, Windrunner, and so on. Okay, secondly, the tester takes over the role of an end user and tests the software to identify any unexpected behavior or bug. See, as a tester, when you do a testing of the application, you have to put your legs in the customer's shoes and start doing your testing, thinking that you are the end user. Okay, and that should be your attitude. Then in automation testing, automates the manual testing process by using some tool like Selenium, as I told you earlier. Now there are different stages for manual testing, and by using automation testing we can rerun the test scenarios that were performed manually quickly and repeatedly. See, in manual testing, if you want to do the testing 4 times, 5 times and all, you have to do it manually. But in automation testing, if you record it and you can play back as number of times you want to repeat the automation testing. So now guys, since we don't have much of time, I'm just rushing ahead. And if you join the course, I think you will understand in depth of this and we can have a deep dive sessions. Okay, so here when we talk about, let me just give you a brief example on QA and QC. Okay, so quality assurance is a planned and systematic set of activities necessary to provide confidence that confirm the specified requirements and meet user needs. So when I talk about quality assurance, it is nothing but, in other words, it is a verification process which we saw. So what we do, it is a process oriented. We are doing this quality assurance, going through the documents with an intention to prevent defects at the earliest stage. So this quality assurance is carried out throughout the life cycle. Okay, and moreover, it is a process of the management. You understood? So quality assurance is what? In other words, if I should tell you, we have seen, we took so much of time in understanding verification. Okay, so quality assurance is nothing but, it is process oriented. It is just the same like verification. Now what is this quality control? Now quality control is nothing but, now you have got the product into your hand, in your hands, and now you are testing or you are validating the product that is given in your hands. You understood? So quality control is nothing but, it's a validation that you are doing on the product which is given to you. Guys, you understood? I think I have answered. There was one who asked about this quality, which I have answered here. Okay, now let me go ahead. QA versus QC. Here in QA, to make sure that we are doing the right things the right way, you can, as some of you have mentioned that, Arshel, I think, in QC, we to make sure that the results of what we have done are what we expected. Okay, we are ensuring all the requirements are meeting the expectation. Focuses on building in quality, and hence we are preventing the defects. Here in QC, we are detecting the defects. We are just, since the product has come in our hands, we are trying to detect the defects, whether there is a defect or not. And now QA, as I told you, it deals with the process, whereas in QC it deals with the product. And QA is for entire life cycle, and QC is testing part in SDLC. SDLC is nothing but software development life cycle. What is a software development life cycle? Is nothing but what I told you. Software development life cycles is starting is requirement gathering, analysis, designing, testing, and implementation, or there was a implementation or production. What is this production all about? It is go live. The product is rolled out in the market. Venkatesh, I have answered your question. You have been asking what is production. So production is nothing but, once when the testing is done by the tester, then the product is ready to go to the market, which is called as the production or implementation. So all these 5 phases are clubbed together and called as SDLC, software development life cycle. In QA, what we are doing, we are trying to prevent the defect, but whereas in QC, since the product is there, when you find the defect, you are correcting the process. Okay, now before I go ahead, so I'm not touch basing on this. Okay, okay, two questions: when to start testing and when to stop testing. I'll address this. Is one of the base important things. So testing is done in different forms at every phase of SDLC. Like as I told you, requirement gathering phase, designing, development, testing, deployment, and support. Deployment is nothing but the production. So when do we need to start our testing? Once your design phase is done, Okay, with the requirement gathering phase, we, as I told you, we are doing some review based on the requirement gathering documents. Our testing starts there. So, and once that is on the review, or we are doing a verification. So when is the actual testing that is start? Testing performed, reviewing the design with the intent to improve the design is also considered as testing. So the developer would have come up with a design phase. This would be the layout. The text box will go there. The buttons will be like this. Okay, as a tester, we can go and give them suggestion. It could be good if this or in set in an order instead of shuttling here and there. Put this all logical operators in one row. Something, all those things can be given. So which means our testing starts with the design phase as well. Then once the development is done, once the product is done, then your testing is starting. You understood? So if you see the gray area here, so our testing starts with the requirement gathering phase, continues to design phase, and then it goes on to the development and comes to testing phase. So the gray area, you can see our testing starts from requirement gathering. Now, when I should stop my testing? So there are many criteria that we can say. One is testing is a never-ending process. You give you give a cell phone to one guy, do some testing. The testing will keep on going, and they will never come to an end. So what we can do is, once when the requirement specifications are all completed, or all your test cases are written or executed, okay, so you can come to an end. Or if the timelines, it depends on the budget of the company, okay, or as I told you, there is a management decision as well. Okay, so when all these criterias are fulfilled, then you can complete your testing. See, as I told you, following other aspects which should be considered. One is testing deadlines, which I said timelines, completion of test case execution, completion of functional and code coverage, which is the requirements are, all the requirements of the documents are met, you can stop your testing. And then the bug rate falls a certain level. If there are no high priority bugs in the product, then you can stop your testing, or it is depends on your management decision. Guys, clear? Now let me just go ahead. Uh, See, I'll come to test case. Okay, so now your product is come in your hand. Now we'll have to start your testing. What I should do as a testing? How do you prove? How do you say, tell your customer that you have done a testing? So what you are doing is you are writing a test case. What is a test case? Test case is nothing but it is a set of conditions or variables under which a tester will determine whether an application or one of its features satisfies the requirements and works correctly. I think it is a very big statement. Now let me give a small example. How do I write a test case? Okay, so now let's say you are asked to test a Gmail login page. Okay, we are asked to do some test, write a test case on Gmail login page. So what is that you will be testing? First of all, you want to log in to gmail.com, right? So what do you want to test there? I want to see whether Gmail login page has got two input boxes. Okay, for what? One is to for user ID, or sorry, or login ID. Another one is for password. Correct? So you need to have two input boxes. Correct? So what you would be doing, thus this login box should be displayed there. So what you're trying to do, you are now documenting your condition as to prove that you have tested this particular scenario. Okay, so here that's what I'm saying here. A test case is nothing but it is a set of conditions or variables under which a tester will determine whether an application or the system is satisfying the requirements and works correctly. Now let me just go ahead here. When I take a sample test case, okay, so now let me just take a live scenario so that it will be easy for you. Okay, now I'm just want to write a test case on a Gmail login page. So what I should do, Gmail, I have to type gmail.com. Okay, so now when I write gmail.com, what should happen? See guys, let me show you one example, simple example. I'll make it. I've opened an Excel sheet. Mostly some of the companies, they write test cases in Excel sheet, and some people, they use tools like Quality Center. Okay, Quality Center is a tool where you can write your test cases and execute there. Now let me just come to the test case. So there would be a test case ID, a test case description. Okay, test case ID, test case description. Now I'm just giving a test steps, and now any preconditions if you have any, and next um, actual output and expected, sorry, instead of actual output you can say actual result, and then status. Now let's assume this is a test case. I'm just giving a simple example where you can have a better understanding. So I can just explain you more during the training sessions. Okay, so now what is my this one? I'm going to test the Gmail login page. So any test case ID depends on the organization. Let's say I have like tc underscore gmail underscore 1001. Okay, test case ID. What is that? I'm going to check. I want to test the page. So what I'm saying, verify whether Gmail login page, Gmail login home page is displayed. Okay, what is the test step I should do? I have to go to, or I'll say launch google.com, sorry, launch Google Chrome or IE. You have to open that's the first step. Okay, step number one. And second, step number two. Now type gmail.com in the URL box. Okay, that is set number, test step number 3. Then third step. Okay, so once, now what is a precondition? Precondition is uh, Google Chrome or IE should be installed in your machine. Okay, so this is the precondition what we give. Okay, so now what happens? Now verify whether, now did you understood what I'm trying to do? Now verify whether Gmail login page, sorry, home page is displayed. So how I should go and render this scenario? I have to launch Google Chrome or IE. Now assume, now let me just do this for you. So now go through the test case. What I'm saying, I want to test whether the login page is displayed or not. How I'm going to do? Launch Google Chrome or IE. So I'm going to launch Google Chrome. Okay, I'm opening the window. Now what is the next step? I am saying type gmail.com in the URL box. So now what I should do? Go here, gmail.com. Okay, so now what is my expected result? No, let me just put this actual result, and here expected result. Okay, so now I'm saying expected result is what? Gmail login home page should be displayed. Okay, so this you will be writing your expected result. Now what I'm doing now, since I have typed, oh my, okay, now I have typed gmail.login page. What happened? Now it has opened up this home page, correct? So now what I should do? Now what is my actual result? Gmail login home page is displayed, correct? Is displayed. Now what is the status? Pass. You understood, guys? So the status of the test case is pass. You understood? Now let me just take another scenario, last one. Okay, so now okay, verify whether system throws an error when invalid login credentials are entered. So my criteria is what? System should throw error. So what I should do, I can follow the same steps, right? Type gmail.login page, and then now I'm saying click on sign in button or link. Okay, so um, login screen should login. Okay, click on sign in please. Now precondition is one. So what I'm trying to do, precondition is not required. Okay, I forgot one more step here. We give something called input, or we call it as test data. Test data is nothing but the inputs that you provide. Okay, so click on sign in link, and then I'll say enter invalid credentials. Okay, so what I'll do in precondition is the same. Okay, so in test data what I'll do, in test data what I will be giving is user ID. I'll give some, I am asking the tester to enter some invalid junk value. Okay, so I'm saying something. Okay, and then password, so enter some value or leave it blank. Okay, so it is an invalid. What should be the expected result? System should throw error. Okay, so now let's go and check it out. So now what is my condition? Launch Google Chrome, that is done. Type gmail.com, that is also done. Now click on sign in link. Okay, so now, okay, now this is showing up something like this. Okay, now I'm just giving this one user ID, this one. Okay, now next it says it's throwing out error. So earlier time the system was like this. It'll have two input boxes where you can type the user ID and password, and then system will throw out error. Now what happened when I gave an invalid one? System is throwing out error. So what is your actual result? System is throwing error, fail, sorry, pass. You understood, guys? This is how we will start writing our test cases. Any questions so far? Did you guys follow me on the test cases? Guys, you there or left? Okay, so this is how we have written. I've just given you the sample test screenshot of the sample test cases which I've already written there. Okay, so now, so I have also showed you the demo. So guys, so this is how we will start writing our test cases. Prior to that, we have some more other things will be there provided, which we will cover as we get into the testing course. Okay, so this is all about the testing, and I hope you enjoyed the session. So before I would wind up the session, I would like to address few questions for the people who have already asked me. Okay, so one is Venkatesh is asking me, could you send me the PPT? uh, Venkatesh, I think you can just get the PPT from the Edureka, or you can reach the technical support team. Okay, so there is one more question from Harshal. Can you please highlight on test plan? See, Harshal, it's a big, vast topic. Let me just quote it in few words. Test plan is nothing but it is a plan before we create a document, before we get into actual testing with the product. So what is a test plan contains all about? The test plan will contains what is the scope of testing, as to what are the functionalities that you're going to test. Okay, and what is the outscope, what are the functionalities that we will not be testing. Okay, that will be mentioned, and how many testers, what is the timelines, and what kind of testing that you're going to do, manual testing or automation testing. If it is automation, what is the tools that you're going to do, the software requirements, and the timelines. All those things will be mentioned in the test plan. Okay, so during the class I will just go through the test plan document and make you feel more comfortable in making you understanding the test plan. Okay, so now Girish is asking me, is that okay, Arshil? Okay, now let me go ahead. A few more questions. What about test scenarios? See, now we wrote test cases. Test scenarios, what as a whole? If I should tell you on this test cases, what I'm doing, that my test scenario is what I'm checking the login page. Scenario is this: test the login page. Finish. That's a test scenario, and then drilling down from there is called the test case. You understood, Girish? Okay, so now let me go ahead with Venkatesh. Could you suggest me how to search a manual testing job in Hyderabad? Some sites. See, Venkatesh, if I should tell you, there are many job portals we have presently. It's like Naukri, Monster, and times jobs and shine.com, and we have many job portals where we have, and you can approach them. You can upload your resume, CV over there, and but appropriately mention the keywords as to what your skill sets and what you're looking for. Okay, and or that is one thing, or you can also approach the consultants where they can also help you out. Okay, so that is the best way where you can search for jobs in manual testing. Is that right? Okay, so well, there was one more question from, let me just see, Harshal. What should I include in smoke testing and sanity of Gmail? See, smoke testing, first you understand what is smoke testing. In smoke testing, we verify the critical functionalities like whether Gmail is working or not. Okay, you understood, that is a smoke testing. Whether the application starts successfully is a smoke testing. So secondly, sanity testing is what verifies any new functionalities, or if there is any bug that you have fixed on the Gmail login page, there you will be checking out on the new functionality, which is or the bug fixes in the build is called as a sanity testing. You understood? So assume if there is any bug you have identified in Gmail login page, and once when the bug is fixed, then you will do some basic testing, which is called as the sanity testing. Okay, you understood? Okay, then now let me just see if there was some few more questions. Okay, now Harshal is saying, sorry, but isn't that regression? No, no, no. Regression is nothing but, see here, if you are, if there is any models or if there is any code that you have installed, okay, and you are ensuring that that particular fixing or any kind of enhancement is not regretting or is not impacting the existing module, okay, then it is called as a regression testing. You understood? So that it is called a regression testing. And now, did you understood, Harshal? Okay, see, let me bit confused with sanity testing. See, let me make it in a simple way. After receiving a software build with minor changes in code or functionality, sanity testing is performed to ascertain that the bugs have been fixed and there are no further issues are introduced on these changes. Okay, so what is the goal? The goal is to determine that the functionality works roughly as expected is what we do in sanity testing. If sanity testing itself is failed, okay, then the build will be reject. We will reject the product and we'll say, please go and fix it up and come out. That's the sanity testing. Okay. Okay, so Venkatesh is asking difference between waterfall and V model. See, Venkatesh, it's a vast area. I will not be able to give you a brief outline, but let me give a just overview. Waterfall is nothing but, see, once it's like the sea waves. Once when the sea wave, the wave comes and lands, and then the next wave starts. Okay, and it's like the waterfall. Once when one fall is done, then the next fall takes place. So same thing, once when it's a similar way in the software development life cycle. Once phase, first phase, requirement gathering is complete and signed off, and then we start the designing phase. Once designing is done, then we will move on to the development phase. Once development is done, then we will move on to the testing phase. It is a waterfall. So one phase is over, then they starts the next phase. Okay, whereas in verification model, apparently the work will be carried out at the time of requirement. We will be preparing the review, we will be preparing a design plan, we will be preparing the test plan. So apparently things will take place in the V model. Clear? So if you need to understand, I think we will have to cover this in the in the class as we continue. Okay, and I think I have covered most of your questions. Let me just check it out one more time. Where can we see ourselves in next 5 years in manual testing? See, that's a good question. I don't know who had asked that question. See, if I should tell you, testing phase is like this. So once when you join as a fresher, then you can promote yourself as a as a test engineer. Then you can move on to a senior test engineer. Then it goes to a QA lead, QA manager, and you can move as a senior project manager, and so on. Okay, so in 5 years of time, assume always any designation that you hold, that should you have to stick on only for 2 to 3 years, and then always ensure that you are progressing further. How I can progress further? It is basically depends on the work, your skills that you have enhanced, and your attitude talks a lot about that. So with a good attitude and with a good spirit, and enhancements of your skills will take you ahead everywhere. It is not only in the manual testing, any field that you take in, the 5 years your skills talks about and takes you to the high. It will elevate you. Okay, so I answer that question. Venkatesh is asking me whether why I chose testing. See, I think I have answered the question at the very early stage of the class. The reason I took testing is because development I feel somewhat bugging and I didn't find much challenging. So whereas in testing I had many chances of moving along with the users, client interaction, and learning lots of learnings were there in different domains. Okay, so and since I that's the reason I just took testing. Okay, Harshal is asking one more question. Is DB testing a part of manual only? Yeah, to a certain extent, DB testing is also a part of manual. Why? Why do I say this? Because see, there are certain data that you will be entering from the front end. Simple example I'm giving. So, and you want to go and check out in the database whether they are updated or not in the DB. So what you'll do, obviously you'll write a query or generate a report and find out to see whether the data are uploaded in the database. You understood? So that way manually, yes, we do testing on the DB part. Harshal, I think I have answered your question. Next, Venkatesh is asking, if interview is asking this question, how can we answer? Okay, so he is saying, okay, if Venkatesh is asking me if an interviewer is asking me why you choose testing, then same answer you give. That's a thing. So you can say, since I love field of testing, the reason is because where I see I can interact more with the client, and I think I can also learn more domain knowledge, and I chose testing because in development they are fixed with the requirement gathering and their job is done. But whereas testing is not so. You are the mouthpiece between your company and the client, and your developer. Okay, so where you have to interact much with the client, and whereas you will also have chances of learning more on the domains. Okay. And then last question, for QTP and Selenium, what language should we learn? So it is better if you have some knowledge on Java. Abhinay is asking me which site in preferred. I didn't get your question. Can you be elaborate on that? Abhinay, I didn't get your question, please. Which site is preferred to learn the QTP and Selenium? Uh, which site is preferred? You mean to say you want to learn it online? Is what you are saying? See, there are several. See, Edureka is also having some courses on Selenium. That also, if you, I would recommend you can join Edureka courses, which where they are giving some courses on Selenium. Okay, and I think there is a new batch recently started, and they are going to launch very soon. That is there. Apart from that, online there are several sites that will help you out. Just Google it, because uh, I don't have anything right upfront to tell you this site or that site. But whereas with Edureka, yes, there is a course that is happening in Selenium that could be helpful for you. Okay, see, and the topic that we'll be covering is introduction on the software testing, and then we cover the test estimation, which would be covered there, and then we will be talking about test design, test planning, test strategy, and we will be covering on the defect management. Okay, and then I'll be talking about the reporting and the team collaboration, and so you can just go through the curriculum, Edureka, this one, and you can take the course curriculum from there. Okay, and Abhinay is asking, can I have your number? And Abhinay, I think it is against the Edureka policy where I may not be able to provide my number. At any point of time, if you have any doubts, you can just get in touch with the technical support team. I think they would help you out, and they will help you to reach me. We saw what is testing, we saw what is verification and validation. We also saw what is the classification of manual testing and automation testing. And then we also saw the verification and validation. Okay, and if I should go ahead, we also saw the cost of software faults. We saw and then when to start and when to stop testing. We also covered a few on the test plan, but we elaboratively we saw what is test case all about and how to write a test case. Okay, so I think guys, if you need more assistance or anything, please feel free to reach out to our technical support team. They would be glad to help you out, and you can also feel free to go and take up the video sessions, which would be available within 24 hours of time. And if I should tell you, there is here goes the course topics that I would be covering. So what is that? Introduction to software testing cycle, test planning, test design, test techniques, levels and types of testing, test execution, defect management, reporting and team collaboration, metrics and measurements. We'll talk about the tools and FAQs in the last module. So there will be 10 modules that we will be taking place. So, and I love this audience. It was too many questions. I hope without I have done my justice answering all your questions. So I think we are having a next class that would be 27th of June. The classes would commence, and feel free to reach out to our technical support team. They would be guiding you. Okay, if there are no questions, guys, I'm happy to have you as our audience, and wishing you a good luck and hope to see you soon in our session. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Have a good night and have a good day.